We're back for the next stage of rebuilding my dad's pond. Welcome to part 2. Episode 1 was all about preparation, sorting out the garden, clearing the pond, and safely rehoming the fish. We also had an unexpected frog rescue mission along the way, but now that the space is ready, the real transformation begins. In this episode, we'll be digging out the new shape, laying the underlay and liner, and adding all of the rockwork. Like with the last episode, I'll also be explaining my decisions behind each step and looking back at lessons we learnt from the first build. First up is the digging. The general plan with this was to make the whole pond more open plan and more oval shaped. Also, this time around, we want the lily shelves to be deeper so they aren't shallow enough for a heron to land in, which we unfortunately learnt from the original design. We are piling the earth at the back of the garden where it can be accessed by a grab lorry from the road behind for removal. For the majority of the dig, rather than me loading the earth into a wheelbarrow for my dad to dump it at the back, we decided that it would be better for me to track each scoop load to the back of the garden and pile it myself with the digger. This way, my dad is free to get on with other parts of the pond. While I'm here, this is another big mistake we did. Everything about it. Do not pile up a load of soil around filter systems because, well, over time it falls and that's what happens. There's a frog here. So we have now finished the digging. Obviously there's quite a bit of neatening up and tidying up, which is what my dad's doing at the moment. Before, where the garage was here, it was a nice L-shaped pond which worked really well because as you walk through, obviously there's a big visual block here of the garage, all the ponds around here, and it wrapped really nicely round to the other side of the garage. And what it was really effective in doing is making people do what I'm doing now, because it made you want to kind of walk all the way around here and see the end of the pond, especially where there was one small waterfall over there as well that you couldn't see until you started walking around. So, but because obviously the garage is now taken down and it's a lot more open plan, what we've done is kind of cut that corner off there, so it's not quite as much of an L shape, it's a bit more kind of open. And also behind where my dad is, we've built up a shelf which we're going to have to compact a lot more, and that's where some lilies are going to be. So again, it's bigger, a bit more kind of oval shaped, which should hopefully suit the new kind of more open plan garden a lot better. This is where the decking's going to go, somewhere here. The fish are going to be able to swim up in that shallow area. There's going to be an intake bay there. I'll be honest, I haven't actually done one yet. Definitely going to need to have a bigger space than that, but as long as the line is big enough, we can work all that out later. There's going to be a return jet to there, so that's not a dead spot, because obviously there's going to be a decking over it. There's also going to be an air curtain somewhere here, so again, there shouldn't be any debris in that area. The intake bay and the air curtain should be pushing everything back this way, obviously into the intake bay. It's also going to be a lot more sloped than it is as well, so literally nothing can sit there. The waterfall is going to be over there, so again, the intake bay is pretty much the opposite end of the pond, which is good for water circulation in one end, out the other. The next job, I believe, is to underlay and line the pond. We haven't worked out how we're going to do the streams and the wildlife ponds yet in terms of the shapes and stuff like that. And we have just had, he is now leaving, all the stones turn up. There should be 8 pallets in total, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. Got 2 pallets of the bigger rocks, 400 to 600 mil, so they'll go nicely as feature pieces. And then we've got a lot of, I think we've got 3 lots of smaller rocks and three lots of slightly larger rocks. Anyway, all different sizes. We purposely went for the Cambrian boulders because they're smooth. Obviously, if we get any sharp stones or anything like that, I mean, there are a few that are kind of a bit pointy, we'll be positioning them in a way that the fish won't be kind of cutting themselves or anything if they start flashing or rubbing up against the rocks. So the Cambrian boulders are really good in that sense, that they are really round and smooth. And then obviously once there is a bit of a slippery film on all the rocks, once they've been wet for a few weeks, it will lessen the risk even more of any fish kind of injuring or damaging themselves on the rocks. So we are just off to get some pond liner now. 1mm Firestone EPDM liner. It's going to be pretty big, so it's going to be quite hard to get in back here because it's going to be very heavy, but yeah, let's go.
The liner itself was about 100 kilos, which isn't the worst thing to lift between the two of us, but because it had no rigidity to it and it was just floppy, it was an absolute nightmare to handle. At the shop, it took 3 of us and a forklift just to get it on the back of the car. Before laying the liner though, we laid the underlay. This is to help protect the liner from anything underground such as sharp roots or bits of stone. Over time, the weight of the water will put pressure on the earth, which may help protrude these sharp objects towards the liner. Ideally, you want to go for something that's 250 grams per square metre or thicker. After a bit of confusion as to what way the liner was folded, we got it laid and then worked towards pushing the liner into all corners of the pond walls, making sure that after the liner has been given enough slack for movement, there would still be a good overhang on all of the sides. We then had just about enough time at the end of the day to start laying the first 1 or 2 layers of rocks. Due to deliveries delaying us, the fish would be in their temporary pond a lot longer than first expected. Because the heat was starting to rise, we added an air pump into the temporary pond to help maintain good oxygen levels. We opted for a Hailia air pump as this has a built-in battery, so if there is ever a power cut, the battery will kick in for up to 8 hours. In most cases, fish can generally survive without filtration for a reasonable time frame, but without oxygen, in a small overstocked system like this one, the fish may only last a few hours. Also, because of the heightened potential of how quickly the water parameters can change in this small system, it's more important than ever to choose a food that is highly digestible and with little to no filler ingredients, which will contribute to an unnecessary amount of waste, which can contribute to poor water parameters. In my pond, I've been using Nutrimare for various reasons, but largely due to the fact that it's the only koi food available in the UK that has no unnecessary filler ingredients and guarantees its high quality of fish meal. With this setup, we went one step further and used their sensitive range, which is slightly lower in protein, therefore there's even less digestive stress, and the herbal health enhancers, which have many effects including enhancing immune function, are even higher in the sensitive range, which for me makes it a perfect food for fish that are in potentially high stressful environments.
So after doing the underlay and the liner, we had just about enough time today to do the bottom kind of 1, 2, 3 layers of rocks. We've used all of the original pile of rocks from the original pond, quite simply because, well, they're different and they are not quite as nice either as the Cambrian boulders that we've got. So putting them at the bottom, they're kind of a bit more out of sight, and once a kind of natural kind of green kind of algae film goes over them, you hopefully won't be able to tell the difference. We have to have a day off of this tomorrow due to work commitments, unfortunately, but it works out quite nicely because, as you can see, we've done the slightly bigger stones at the bottom for the, like the footing stones and stuff like that, to give it a better base, more stability for the amount of rocks that are going to be going on top of one another. It works out quite nicely, to be fair, that we're going to be leaving it there for a day because it's going to have a chance to kind of sink and settle a bit due to the like clayey and wet consistency of the soil. So there will be a bit of sinking going on. So yeah, it probably works out quite well because once it's all sunk and stuff like that, I'm going to go around all the bottom, all the crevices with the expanding foam, so then it's going to make the footing stones, the foundation stones, even stronger and even less likely to slip. Everywhere we could, we have put ledges, and the reason for this is simply because, for example over here, you can't really see it because the liner's stretched a bit at the moment, but the idea is that there's only going to be kind of 4 or 5 rocks on top of each other before then the next ones up are going to be sitting on top of that ledge there, and then again there's only going to be 3 or 4 on top of there. In my pond the walls are a lot more vertical because I was very limited with space, so I kind of risked it a bit, and in some places, in quite a few places, there are probably about 8, 9, 10 rocks on top of each other, but touch wood, so far, I'm not going to say it because I'll jinx it, but you know what I'm trying to say. And also the reasoning with that is that it's my own pond, so if I have to go in and kind of do any repairs or reconstruction or anything, I don't really mind too much. So for that reason, kind of I risked it just so I could give the fish as much swimming space as possible. So those shells are kind of all the way around, apart from right here where we are going to be having a waterfall. So the reason for this is simply because we want to be giving, where the waterfall is, we want to be giving the effect of as much of a vertical drop as possible. So what we're doing here, the more I'm walking around, the more I'm seeing some stones that need to change because they just, although they're strong where they are, they just look a bit out of place and not natural, including a few down there. But basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the really, really bigger, wider rocks down the bottom. So there is an awful lot of kind of stability, so we can get away with stacking up. There's probably going to be about 8, 9 rocks in total on top of each other. But saying that, like I say, they're going to be bigger rocks, so there might not be quite as many, but we'll see how we get on. Obviously, the bigger rocks they are in diameter, the heavier they are, so the more stability is required. So we're going to see how we get on with that. This is as far as we're going to go with the rocking up for now. Obviously, it's not all the way to the top, as you can see, but the final top layer is going to be all sorted out when we do the actual edging, as opposed to kind of put them up at the ground height now and then kind of have to move a lot of them because we want certain edging stones in certain places, etc. Obviously, as you can see, there is a lot of white foam. We will be ripping a lot of that off, or the excess off, should I say. And once the pond has been going for a few weeks and there's kind of a bit of a film, you don't really see it at all. Round mine, we did exactly the same using the cheap foam, which is white at the bottom, which is still safe for aquatic life, and then use the black landscaping foam around the very top and round where the waterfall's going to be and stuff like that. Just saves quite a bit of money. Obviously black's better because it blends in better, but the black landscaping foam is about 3 times the price as the normal white stuff.
But once you've trimmed it back and covered it in pebbles, you're not really going to see it anyway. Since we still had the digger on hand, we decided to tackle moving the big log from besides the pond. The plan is to turn it into a seamless seating area in the garden. This annoyingly took quite a while, even with the digger, but now that it's done, right now it does still look pretty rough, but we're hoping that once we do some landscaping and get some plants or bushes in, it will blend in quite nicely and feel like quite a natural feature. That's about it for this episode. On the next one, it will be about the suction grid, the bog/wildlife pond and the waterfall. I'll see you on the next one.